Mr. Speaker, will take no lessons from the Conservative.
I suggest that you go home, pack a lunch, come back to class, let Pierre run the country, and he'll take you to school.
Donald Trump issued a not-so-surprising post on social media yesterday where he announced a 25% tariff on all goods imported from Canada unless the drug and border security issues are resolved. What was Trudeau's response?
Let's take a look.
Plan for economy and security that puts Canada first. But despite the fact the Prime Minister has known for years that Trump was threatening these tariffs, and for 3 weeks that President Trump had won the election, the only plan he has is a Zoom call. No plan to reverse his disastrous liberalization of drugs that have killed people and now threaten our borders. No plan to fix the broken borders that he caused. No plan to cancel the tax increases that will drive billions and many jobs away. Where's the plan to put Canada first?
Okay, so many of you may be saying, what? I'm all of a sudden hearing about a 25% tariff. What is that, and what does that even mean? Well, we took a look at some of the mainstream media articles, and all they really said was, oh, well, Trump posted this, but they wouldn't post a link to the post. Why? Because that was linked back to Donald Trump's Truth social platform, and they can't link to that, can they?
No, of course not. We can't give it exposure.
Right.
Goodness forbid.
Well,
like, come on.
Good thing Google exists. So here's the actual post that Trump posted on Truth Social.
As everyone is aware, thousands of people are pouring through Mexico and Canada, bringing crime and drugs at levels never seen before. Right now, a caravan coming from Mexico, composed of thousands of people, seems to be unstoppable in its quest to come through our currently open border. On January 20th, as one of my many first executive orders, I will sign all necessary documents to charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. This tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Both Mexico and Canada have the absolute right and power to easily solve this long simmering problem. We hereby demand that they use this power, and until such time that they do, it is time for them to pay a very big price. So it's essentially forcing Canada and Mexico to solve the issue of illegal migrants as well as illegal drugs coming from both sides of the border, Canada and Mexico into the US, and flooding the US with illegal migrants as well as illegal drugs.
Well, and I bet that they're actually getting legal drugs from Canada. You know, the legal fentanyl that we actually give people as part of quote unquote safe supply that they don't have in the United States.
Well, and fentanyl is used in medical applications outside of like safe supply. We used to use it in veterinary for dogs and cats that would have a limb amputated often was the use, because it is a very good analgesic. It stops the pain.
But this is the problem when we're essentially giving a whole bunch of people free narcotics in Canada and they end up selling them to kids, or sounds like the other thing that's happening is they're taking them across the border and selling them there. That's going to be a big problem, isn't it? And Trudeau and company can deny that that's happening all they want, but they've seen evidence of it across the country. You had the London Police Services issue a press conference months ago, and we covered that, where they were saying, we seized a whole bunch of fentanyl that was part of the government's quote-unquote safe supply program. So this isn't too surprising. It's not too surprising because this isn't the first time Donald Trump has talked about this. But it seems to be a surprise to Chrystia Freeland, Justin Trudeau, and the rest of his government.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Instead of panicking and falling back on slogans like the Leader of the Opposition, we rolled up our sleeves and we're getting to work. We're working with all the premiers, pulling together in a Team Canada approach, because that's how we defend Canadian jobs from coast to coast to coast. I spoke with Donald Trump yesterday evening, talked about how important it was for us to work together to solve some of the challenges we're facing as a continent, as countries, but also work to grow our economy, protect our workers on both sides of the border. This is the responsible, methodical approach we're taking as we move forward, while our opponent falls back on slogans and fear.
So wait a minute. You're being a leader by pulling the premiers together and having a chat with them in a Team Canada approach.
What does that have to do with this? Borders are a federal responsibility.
Right. And I seem to remember all of the premiers asking you to meet with them to talk about the carbon tax and other issues, and you refused to do that. But now that you're in a political problem, what? Now it's everybody else's fault? Oh, right. Yeah, that's how you operate, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's everybody help me, but I don't lift a finger to help anybody else.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He spoke with the incoming president, and moments later, Mr. Trump put out a tweet slapping a 25% tariff on Canada. So that worked about as well as the Prime Minister's efforts on Buy America and softwood lumber, which continue to be penalized, even though the previous Conservative government got both of those things lifted. Now move over to drugs. The Prime Minister's disastrous legalization and liberalization of drugs has the Americans worried, in addition to costing 47,000 deaths in Canada. Where's the plan to stop the drugs and keep our border open to trade?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition is just making stuff up. I clearly spoke with the President of the United States an hour and a half after he put out his suggestion on tariffs. The reality is...
That's not a good sign either.
His suggestion?
No, but like, if you talk to somebody and then they go running to Twitter like, hey, we're going to sanction your country, that's really not a good sign.
Right? Great first conversation you had with Trump, buddy. Like...
We're going to continue to work constructively with the incoming administration to protect Canadian jobs, to protect Canadian growth, to take the responsible approach that isn't steeped in partisanship, that pulls together the Team Canada approach that stands up for Canadians instead of throwing our arms up and saying all is broken like the Leader of the Opposition.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, that's even worse. The statement went out promising tariffs before they even got a chance to speak. It's kind of like him backing down on Buy America and backing down on softwood lumber, Mr. Speaker. Now let's move to the tariffs the Prime Minister wants to impose on our economy. Quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre would cripple our economy. New tax increases on work and energy would do likewise, sending hundreds of billions of dollars south of the border. Now that Canadians are facing this economic crisis, will he at least cancel his plan to hike taxes so we can save jobs?
Okay, so for those of you that don't know, about an hour or two before question period, Pierre had a press conference in front of the House of Commons where he talked about the 25% tariff. And he must be rubbing his hands together because, frankly, this is kind of a gift to Pierre. And
yeah, it makes the Trudeau and the Liberal government look weak. It's not that the U.S. government is just imposing tariffs for the sake of it. He's imposing tariffs in order to get Canada to stop the flow of illegal migrants and drugs from the Canadian border.
Well, what this allows Pierre to do is to actually double down on his attacks on the carbon tax, because now he's saying, okay, so not only do we have a 25% tariff coming from the United States, we've introduced our own tariff on literally all of our goods, which is the carbon tax.
Right. So goods produced in Canada are going to cost more in order for us to send them down to the United States anyways, before they even reach the border.
So, not only are our goods, going to be taxed 25%, meaning They're going to be much less in demand down in the United States because they're going to be costing 25% more. Now we're going to be having an even higher carbon tax on literally every good that's produced in Canada and outside of Canada. This is insanity. It is absolute insanity. So this is a real gift to Pierre to be able to just say, look, it's compounding and compounding and compounding. This is ridiculous. And it makes his argument for removing the carbon tax now that much more relevant.
Here we see once again the leader of the opposition flailing and inventing stuff to try and fit his preferred attacks into his priorities. The reality is we're going to continue to work constructively with the incoming administration to do what Canada and the U.S. have always done: create prosperity together, protect jobs on both sides of the border as we grow the economy. When it comes to drugs, Mr. Speaker, we've taken serious steps on that and we'll continue to. If the leader of the opposition is suggesting he wants to recriminalize marijuana, let him just say that.
That's not what he said at all.
Wow.
That's not what he's implying at all.
Wow. So, okay, folks. So basically what all Trudeau is hearing is, well, fentanyl's fine, but it's the marijuana that's the problem that Pierre has. No.
Well, you can't take marijuana from Canada because it's legal up here. You cannot bring it down to the States. Maybe you can in some states. I honestly don't know. But by and large, that's not the concern. The concern is the fentanyl. The concern is the opioids.
Well, and he says, we've taken serious steps. What? What have you done? You've literally done nothing. The only people that have actually done anything are the provinces where they've actually started, at least in Ontario, to be able to close these safe supply sites because they are a disaster for the communities that they're in.
They sure are. I mean, there was a story we did this past summer where there was one in Montreal that was being opened like literally down the street from a school.
Yeah, and there was stories of kids walking to school, walking by people shooting up, walking by people doing very inappropriate things, like in front of kindergartners. What have you done?
Right. We should not be restructuring our society around people who are breaking the rules and doing things that are harmful. We shouldn't expect children of everybody in our society to have to put up with this.
Think about this, folks. The crime rate has continued to go up under Trudeau, despite the fact that he's decriminalized a whole bunch of offenses. What does that say?
Right.
Donald Trump's threats of tariffs could threaten hundreds of thousands of Canadian mortgage-paying jobs. The only thing a bully responds to is strength. So where is our plan to fight back? Where is the war room? Where is a concrete plan to bring our issue before CUSMA? Why isn't the Prime Minister fighting like hell for Canadian jobs?
Hear, 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 hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, rather than panicking, we're engaging in constructive ways to protect Canadian jobs like we have before. I don't think the idea of going to war with the United States is what anyone wants. What we will do is stand up for Canadian jobs as we have before, as we will continue to. Stand up for the prosperity we create when we work together. Stand up for the challenges that we're facing, that we're protecting Canadians from. There is work we can do together. That is the work we will do, seriously, methodically, but without freaking out the way the leader of the NDP seems to be.
Did he take going to war literally?
Yep. And I think he took it literally because I don't think Trudeau has ever been in a war room. Now, what is a war room? A war room is essentially a strategy session where you dedicate a whole bunch of time and your top resources and your top people to navigate a crisis or a problem. So here's an example. One of the things that I used to do is I used to help companies migrate their IT infrastructure from one company to another when they were bought or when they were separating. What did we do? We had a war room. Did that mean I was going to war against the company? No.
Going for the war on capitalism.
Yeah, can you imagine? No, that's not what happened. But like, this is the thing. Nobody has any confidence that Trudeau is going to do anything. And he's just saying, well, we're going to do what we've always done. And that's what we're afraid of.
Right. And if Jagmeet Singh actually wanted to do something, maybe he should call an election and let a real leader guide this country.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
It was that Prime Minister that was forced to accept humiliating concession after concession. And now he's kneecapped Canada's economy. He's slapped a massive carbon tax here while the U.S. doesn't have one at all. Yep. He's raising taxes on investing in Canada while the U.S. is fighting to attract investment there. Exactly. He's imposed a production cap on Canadian energy, meaning Canada will produce less of what the U.S. needs to buy. Yep. There are less than 60 days left to act. It's time for the Prime Minister to put aside his partisanship, his ideology, and his ego. Will he strengthen Canada's position by cancelling his carbon tax and all tax hikes on jobs and investments?
Yes. The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, will take no lessons from the Conservative. Their strategy, Mr. Speaker, last time was to capitulate. On this side of the House, as the Prime Minister said, Mr. Speaker, is to take that seriously and methodically. Mr. Speaker, we have been engaging with our U.S. partner on three key things. The first one is security. Security of the border, security of the North and the Arctic, resilient supply chain when it comes to semiconductors, when it comes to critical minerals, when it comes to energy, and put forward a growth plan for North America, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we'll fight for Canadians, we'll fight for industry, we'll fight for our country, Mr. Speaker.
We will take no lessons from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker.
I'm surprised you did that considering you're catching a cold.
It's worth it. It's worth it. Okay, so let's go through those three things. Security of the border and the Arctic. Okay, why do we need the United States' help to secure our own country? Please tell me that, Mr. Champagne. Please tell me why we need U.S. resources. Oh, right, because we don't invest in our military.
I was going to say because we let our military just rot.
Right.
Like it's falling apart, and that's not right. Like, as a country, you want to be able to defend yourself. And I had said this in I believe it was our episode of Northern Dispatch with Harrison Faulkner, that the military, it's treated by the guys in charge kind of like an IT department, that when things are going well, it's cut. We don't need that. What are we spending all this money on that for? And then when things go wrong, oh boy, are you in trouble.
Yeah, well, why aren't you guys ready? That's basically
right.
the attitude. So, that's that one. The second one is minerals and all this stuff. Well, you won't even open a mine in Canada. So, again, you're relying on the United States for their resources, so you want to import rather than produce our own. Like, don't even. You guys have done nothing. And in your ignorance and in your crazy ideological pursuit of fixing the environment with a climate tax and preventing everybody else in Canada from producing things, meanwhile the rest of the world is going hog wild, you've let Canada essentially become a wasteland, an economic wasteland.
Right.
And you're threatening to make it even worse with a production cap on the energy in Alberta. Like, that doesn't mean that less gas is being produced. It just means it's getting produced now elsewhere. That's what that means.
Right, because the need for that gas doesn't go away. The worldwide need does not go away. It's just that people, other countries, will no longer be giving money to Canada to fill that need. So that's less Canadian jobs, less money in our economy. None of this makes sense. It makes sense if you're trying to destroy the country, but it doesn't make sense if you're trying to create a prosperous Canada.
So to Champagne, who says, we will take no lessons from the Conservatives, I suggest that you go home, pack a lunch, come back to class, let Pierre run the country, and he'll take you to school.